Good morning. I've got Facebook and I have Instagram open on my phone. Also, a live video today from Coach Megan, yours truly. Here's to hoping my phone doesn't ring this week while I'm trying to shoot a live video on my phone and the computer. Fingers crossed. So, today we're going to talk about a calorie deficit because this is a super, super important topic to know and understand if you have a goal to lose fat and feel better. So, let's talk about this. Before we go into a calorie deficit, we need to understand what a BMR is, what your basal metabolic rate is. Basal metabolic rate is how many calories you burn at rest. It's how many calories it costs your body to exist in the world. So ways we can find out that information. There are plenty of tests out there with registered dietitians you can take. It's like a breath test that can determine your exact basal metabolic rate, but also here at Get Fit New Hampshire, we have a STIKU scan that can give you a pretty good baseline, or pretty good ballpark rather, of what your basal metabolic might be. So it's really important to understand this, that your BMR, your basal metabolic rate, that's how many calories you burn at rest. And it's really, really important that you do not eat less than that, because if you do, then your body tends to hold on to fat because it's like, hey, I need this to exist and you're not giving it to me. Therefore, I'm not going to burn it. So one thing to, again, understand about this is that, especially like in the 90s, 2000s, there was all this talk about 1,200 calorie diets, right? 1,500 calorie diets to get these awesome results. And while it works for a little while, maybe, it's not super sustainable. So now that we understand what a BMR, what basal metabolic rate is, we need to understand what an expenditure is. So caloric expenditure is how many calories you burn in a day with this added exercise or added strength training in your life. So whether it's strength training or exercise, whatever it is, how many days a week do you exercise? Is your life active? Is it sedentary? All of those things matter when we're talking about fat loss. So again, here at Get Fit New Hampshire, we use the STIKU scan that gives us the information that we need to plug in, hey, Megan trains 4 days a week, and because she trains 4 days a week, she's got, she expends, say, for fun, we'll say 2,000 calories a day. So in order to get into a calorie deficit, we need to take away from that expenditure. So let's play pretend here because I'm not that good at math, okay? So we're going to say that my BMR, my basal metabolic rate, is 1,400 calories a day. So that's how much it costs my body to exist in the world. And my expenditure, based on how much I exercise and I move in my daily life, I expend 2,000 calories a day. So in order to put me in a calorie deficit, we're going to take, say, 500 to 700 calories away from that 2,000 number. So let's start with 500, and we'll say that puts you at about 1,500, okay? And that was probably, I went too low for the sake of my demonstration here, so we're going to actually bump that. Say I expend 2,500 calories for the sake of this math working out the way that it should. So say I expend 2,500 calories a day, and I'm going to put myself in a 500 to 700 calorie deficit. And if I put myself in that 500 to 700 calorie deficit, then that's going to put me on track to lose 1 pound to 1.5 pounds a week of fat. So let's say take away 700 calories because that's more likely for me. So say 1,800 calories, right? That's eating 2,500 minus 700 calories is eating 1,800 calories a day. And that's putting me in a caloric deficit, right, to lose fat. It's above my BMR. So it's right in that sweet spot of giving myself the opportunity to eat less and still expend. So really, really important that if you have a goal to lose fat, then you are moving your body, right? You are intentionally moving your body, you're exercising, you're strength training, and that you're doing something for your body. Your body needs to expend. So you've got to actually move to make that happen. Have a daily, intentional movement outside of just the gym also, right? If you have a super sedentary job, moving more is going to, not training more necessarily, but moving more is going to influence more calories to burn, okay? And the more lean mass you have, the more muscle mass you have, the more calories you're burning at rest. It's magic. So, of course, for the sake of, as long as you are in a caloric deficit, you will lose fat. That will happen. How you fuel those calories is the difference between losing fat or losing weight, right? And then the difference between losing weight and then losing fat and building muscle at the same time is how it all depends on how we fuel, say, that fake number, 1,800 calories. So making sure that we're getting our protein in, right? It's really, really important that you don't skimp out on your protein intake. If you're skimping out on your protein intake, then and you're in a caloric deficit, you are going to lose lean mass as well, most likely. Here at Get Fit New Hampshire, again, we use the SciFood scan to give us that information so that we know where, as the scale is coming down, we're like, where is it coming from? Because while it's cool to lose weight on the scale, it's not cool to lose your lean mass, because losing your lean mass means you are actually burning less calories at rest, right? Because the more muscle mass you have, the more calories you burn at rest. It's magic. That's why you need a strength train in your life. If you're not, I got you. So you're like, okay, well, how much protein should I be eating then? So we can easily get your BMR and your expenditure. You can honestly, you could probably Google that and get a pretty good ballpark idea of what you should be eating based on, how much you're exercising and what your BMR is. So we can get that information for you here. Any clients, or if you want to book a SciFood scan with us, we got you. We can do that for you. So you're like, okay, well, I understand, like, I can find out easily how many calories I should be eating, how much protein should I be eating. So a good area to aim for is 0.8 to 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. So for example, again, for nice numbers here, let's say I weigh 160 pounds. So my goal would be to be somewhere between 125 grams of protein to 160 grams of protein every single day. And you might be saying, oh my God, Megan, that's a lot of protein. How am I supposed to eat that much? Well, here's a fun fact. There are only 4 calories in 1 gram of protein. So if we go back to that, okay, we're eating somewhere between 125 and 160 grams of protein per day. We're talking like 500 to, well, I'm not very good at math. It's somewhere in the 500 range, 500 to 600 calories from protein. So if your goal is to get somewhere between 1,800 calories, that means only 500 to 700 of those calories are coming from protein. So let's back up and remind you that you can eat that much, because I bet you, if I'm talking about myself right now, that nice, you're at a Mexican restaurant, you get the chips, you get the salsa, you get the margarita, boom, you just had 1,000 calories like that, right? You could do it. It's important to know where these calories are coming from. So one thing personally that I've been doing over the last several weeks is tracking, not my food. I'm not tracking my food and being crazy in my fitness pal or anything like that, but I'm tracking my calories and my protein intake, and that's it. So it literally looks like this, because I just started for the day. So just 330 calories, 15 grams of protein, 370 calories, 40 grams of protein. Just tracking those two numbers has made a giant difference, and some mental awareness of how much I was actually eating, right? Every single bite counts. So if your goal is to be in a calorie deficit, you're trying to lose fat and you're trying to build muscle simultaneously, and you have no idea what you're eating, then you have a dream, not a goal, my friend. All right. So it's really, really important to pay attention to what you're eating. If you have a goal to have, people are like, I want to have abs, so I'm going to do sit-ups for days. And I'm like, well, you're going to be sad until you know what you're eating, because that's where abs are made, in the kitchen, my friend. So it's really, really important that you know this information. I speak passionately about it, because I have many conversations every single day about, with frustrated clients often, family, friends, who are like, why can't I lose this weight? And it's because food. Like 9.9 times out of 10, it's because of food, not the exercise piece. If you are faithfully exercising, moving your body in your training, you know that's not the problem. More exercise is not the answer to fat loss. What you're putting in your mouth is the answer to fat loss. So it's important that you know what you're eating, because all that mindless snacking, right? And I'm speaking personally too, because I got kids at home, right? They got the goldfish, the Cheez-Its, they got the popcorn, they got all the things, right? And as parents, often we're like, you didn't finish what's on your plate. I don't want to throw it away, so we eat it, right? But all those extra calories, they count towards our fat loss goals. So those are still calories that are adding up and not putting us in that calorie deficit to help us lose fat. So being super duper mindful of that is going to help you with your goals. Also, drinks, right? And I'm not talking just alcohol. I'm talking Alcohol is obviously a big one, cocktails, beer, but also, your iced coffees, soft drinks, all those, like the sugary energy drinks, those things all add up. If they have calories in them, those calories count. If you are trying to be in a calorie deficit, then you're not helping yourself, right? So I would challenge you to be super mindful. Give yourself 2 weeks of just being wicked mindful of your calorie intake and your protein intake, and be super honest with yourself and say, whoa, maybe I am snacking or eating a little bit more than I thought that I was, because I was. And so, people think that coaches are superhumans. We're not. It's not the truth. We struggle with just the same things that you do, right? So we're all people. We love food. We socialize with food. We connect over food. Being mindful is super important. You're like, okay, well, I like to go out on the weekends, or I like to go out, you have like a night, or you have a whatever, a event that you like to go, and you like to get the cocktail, have the tacos, whatever. I'm using that because that's my thing, and maybe you can relate. I don't know. But one thing that you can do, so that you can still do those fun things, right? You can still go out with the girls, you can still go get a beer with the dudes, whatever. But if you are mindful throughout the day before going out, you know that you're going to go do those things, then you can sort of be in control with something like this, where you're paying attention to your calorie and your protein intake. So if you're keeping your calories low and your protein high, that way when you go out, you can have the good time, and you can still be in a calorie deficit. You can still make those mindful decisions. So, guys, this is one thing I'm going to continue to talk about. We have a challenge coming up in May. We do, it's called S3. We do it every May. It's the biggest challenge that we do. It's the Sizzling Summer Slim Down, spring into summer, that kind of thing. This time I'm going to call it the Ultimate Fat Loss Challenge, because we're going to be talking and we're going to be paying heavy attention to being in a caloric deficit without obsessing. And as a person who has lived through the obsessive behaviors, I am very, very careful about that. So I want to make sure I would never give that to somebody else. We're going to use a checklist form, a way to teach you how to be in a caloric deficit, so that you can get the results that you want, and that you can feel like you can still have the things that you enjoy without being obsessed and feeling like you suck and that you just can't lose the weight no matter what. So anyways, guys, if you have questions on that, I am a geek and happy to answer those questions. Otherwise, guys, I hope you have a great rest of your Wednesday, and we'll chat soon.